I am starting to see more and more opinion pieces written by people like, say, Paul Krugman, whom you're, familiar with, or Mimi Schwartz, who is the executive editor of Texas Monthly. A lot of people are writing essays now, think pieces, op-eds, about the craziness of the people who won't get vaccinated now that vaccine is available and fully approved, and the people in positions of power, like Greg Abbott, the sitting governor of Texas, or this sick gangster Ron DeSantis in Florida, or the governor of Missouri. So many of these Christian fascists who absolutely don't care about life or death, regardless of what they say. So some people who I have great respect for whom I have great respect, are starting to voice their opinion. Krugman had an interesting piece the other day. He said, let's talk for a minute about Lollapalooza. The event that is in different places around the country. This time it was in Chicago. Chicago had canceled the in-person events last year. But a couple of weeks ago, the Windy City was again hosting this music festival. And it drew more than close to 500,000 people to Grant Park. A lot of folks who are fearful of COVID-19, as I am, were afraid that this huge raucous crowd could produce a super spreader event for this disease. But, and this shows the thought processes of the organizers, the festival required proof of vaccination or a negative COVID test for entry. And halfway through, it introduced indoor mask requirements. And very few people appear to have been infected. Now, this is just a couple of weeks ago. There's more time to go. But compare this to the motorcycle craziness that occurs in South Dakota every year. But what does this tell us about the Chicago event? Well, Krugman says that what it tells us is the return to more or less normal life and some of its pleasures that a lot of us hoped, expected the COVID vaccine would deliver. A lot of that has happened. And the reason it hasn't, the reason we are instead still living in fear, I know I am, with hospitals across the South near the breaking point, the reason for that is the people who still refuse to be vaccinated and the fact that not enough people are wearing masks. Now, Krugman takes a tack here that I tend to disagree with. He says it's possible to have sympathy for some of the unvaccinated. No, I can't, not unless they have a medical reason where a vaccine of any sort would put them in some kind of reactive jeopardy. But Krugman still thinks it's possible to have sympathy for some of these unvaccinated. And he says especially workers who find it hard to take time off to get a shot and are worried about losing a day to after effects. For the most part, there are no after effects. You'll have a sore arm, for Christ's sake. And I didn't have a sore arm until the second shot. And how long does it take to get a shot? I mean, do you not have a personal physician? Is there not a doc in the box near? You don't have to go to a place where there are lines. Can't you do it on your lunch hour? Like I say, this is where Krugman and I disagree. But he goes on, there's much less excuse for those who refuse to get their shots or wear masks for, get this, cultural, that means religious, or ideological reasons, that means political. And there is no excuse at all. Here's where Krugman and I come back together. There's no excuse at all for these insane governors like DeSantis in Florida and Abbott in Texas and this crazed son of a bitch Doug Ducey in Arizona. These three and some others have been actively impeding efforts, making it more difficult to contain the latest outbreak, as though they are working on the side of some evil force, which I believe they are. I truly believe. I said this a couple of weeks ago. I got all involved in this idea of evil. I think these people are evil. So anyway, how do you feel? This is a personal question. How do you feel about these anti-vaxxers, truth seeker, or the anti-maxxers? You know how I feel. Krugman says he's angry about their antics, even though he's able to work from home and he doesn't have school-aged children. But Krugman thinks that many Americans share that anger. You think? He says the question is whether this entirely justified anger, call it the rage of the responsible, will have a political impact. Whether leaders will stand up for the interests of Americans who are trying to do the right thing, but whose lives are being disrupted and put in danger by these crazy son of a bitches who, because of their sick religion or their weird twisted politics, are making it difficult for the rest of us to just fucking live and get through this pandemic. You know, it should be obvious at this point that getting vaccinated and or wearing a mask in public places isn't a matter of so-called personal choice or personal freedom for these assholes. Because when you reject getting vaccinated, or you refuse to put on a mask, or you want to go hassle the local school board because they're trying to protect your goddamn child, you're increasing everybody's risk when you do that, not you, of catching this potentially deadly or disabling disease. And the people who are doing this, it's amazing. They're the ones screaming to so-called open up the country, and yet what they are doing is helping to perpetuate the economic costs of the pandemic, the fact that places have to stay closed. So Krugman has an interesting point here. He says, in a very real sense, this irresponsible minority is depriving the rest of us of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Oh, where have we heard that before? Not from these crazy religious political sons of bitches. No, we don't hear that from them. What they hear from them is any effort to contain this pandemic is infringing on their baby candy ass freedom. Oh my God. To say something else that should be obvious, these crybaby bastards who are claiming that their opposition to these public health measures is about protecting freedom are lying through their goddamn teeth. They're just lying. But this is what Trump cult members do. This is what Christian fascists do constantly, perpetually, from the moment they wake up to the moment they go to sleep. They are liars, deceivers, hypocrites, all of them. And masks, I mean, something as simple as a goddamn mask, ever since that became part of the so-called culture war, it's obvious that people who oppose the mask mandates aren't just demanding the right to walk around with their bare faces hanging out. They want to stop other people from acting responsibly. That's the thing about Christian fascists. You do it my way, son of a bitch, or the highway. Do it and believe what I believe, or you're going to burn in hell. Follow what I say, or the liberals are going to take over. Do what I say, or you'll be forced to wear a mask. Jesus Christ. And this pig, this Nazi son of a bitch, and there's no doubt anymore that Tucker Carlson is a Nazi, but he tells his viewers to confront people who are wearing masks. And then I've shared with you a couple of reports of these violent confrontations from these these Nazi son of a bitches, these Christian fascists, the people who suck up to both Trump and Tucker Carlson, where they have approached school board members, school teachers, and tried to rip their masks off. This is what the Christian fascists are promoting. This is what they have always promoted. For 2 millennia, this is what they promoted. Oh, and let's not even get close to the idea of, well, Mike, these are really Republicans. These are conservatives. Horseshit. Conservative principles that have been kicked to the curb. Whenever, as Krugman puts it this way, whenever honoring those principles would help rather than hurt attempts to contain the pandemic. And then the thing about businesses, where businesses are demanding that people wear masks for decades. How long? Ever since you've been politically aware, ever since I've been politically aware, conservatives have insisted that business owners should have the right to do as they please. How many times have you seen that sign? We reserve the right to refuse service to anyone, which was targeted toward people of color. We all know that. But that has been almost a religious claim of these bastards. And to hire and fire at will, to deny service to anybody they please, right? Yet, here is this sick son of a bitch, Greg Abbott, the sitting governor of Texas, threatening to pull the liquor licenses of restaurants that ask for proof of vaccination, even as his filthy fucking state, because of him, runs out of ICU beds. I mean, you don't call that evil? Do you call that stupid? No. Do you call it ignorant? Nope. Who do you call that? That is evil. Leave your door. That's just like DeSantis, the sick fucker down in Florida, who threatens to withhold money allocated by the Florida General Assembly for schools. And DeSantis now says he's going to keep that money away from the schools that enforce mask mandates. What do you call that? If you're sane, if you're logical, if you're reasonable, you call that evil. Purely and simply. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcast. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.